Our next guest is unveiling some new legislation designed it says here, to fix our tax system. We'll explain that. Targeting, in part, the ultra-wealthy. Let's welcome Congressman Khanna of the 17th District of California, in the heart of Silicon Valley, sits on the budget, the Armed Services and Oversight Reform Committee. Thanks for joining us. We should make it clear, from what I can tell, you're not talking about necessarily new legislation to tax the wealthy or corporations more. You're trying to fund the IRS, which a lot of people, and I'm sure this is part of what you're thinking, think that it's been starved. One of the agencies that hasn't gotten enough funding. Therefore, it would seem to be a pretty easy way to get a return on your money, the IRS, if you could if you could make sure everyone was paying their fair share of what they're supposed to pay, Congressman.
Exactly. This isn't going to raise taxes a dime. It's simply saying that people shouldn't get away with tax evasion. It's not going after tax avoidance. It's actually going after people who are simply not paying what they owe. Larry Summers and Natasha Sarin did work that shows you could raise $1.2 trillion over the next 10 years if you staff the IRS and just had them audit and enforce the top taxpayers as individuals and corporations who aren't paying their tax.
I think that's a pretty important point to make of what you're doing. I don't know who wouldn't think that this it would be effective legislation, especially if you can connect the dots between money that it would cost to bolster the IRS and what it does versus the kind of expected return that you would get. That seems like a kind of a no-brainer.
Absolutely, and it needs to have better technology, better expertise in enforcing it. But here's the shocking thing. There was a report out that the IRS actually is auditing the poorest individuals in the Delta, Mississippi at a higher rate than they're auditing people in the wealthiest brackets, even though most of the tax evasion is in the higher brackets. So there are people who disagree with where I think marginal rate should be or progressive taxation. But everyone should be able to agree on this simple principle that you ought to pay the taxes that you're owed. It seems to me that's the essence of the American sense of fairness.
Well, unfortunately, it's conflated a lot, and I'm just wondering whether you're adding to that, Congressman, by just saying getting corporations to pay their fair share. Do you have data that shows that corporations are breaking the law routinely in terms of tax evasion?
This is, again, based on Larry Summers' economic paper, and his view and the research he's done, and Natasha Sarin shows that when you have some of the wealthiest corporations and the wealthiest individuals, that they aren't paying the taxes that they're owed, and the IRS doesn't have the sufficient staff to be able to enforce it. So my view is, look, maybe it's not 1.2 trillion. I think that's what Larry Summers thinks it is. Maybe it's 500 billion. Maybe it's $1 trillion. But the investment is so small. Why not do it and ensure that people are paying what they owe?
Did he actually give details about what are wealthy individuals, these nasty wealthy individuals, what are they doing to evade taxes? How are they doing it? Just because you can go to jail. You go to jail when that happens, or you pay large penalties. I can't imagine that a corporate CFO would sign anything, given the recent regulations, that if they were just overtly cheating on their taxes.
Well, he makes no judgment on the morality of wealth creation, and certainly I celebrate entrepreneurs and wealth generators. He simply says that statistically, that's where a lot of the people are not paying their taxes. Now, whether it is intentional or whether it is that they aren't complying with the law out of negligence or out of ignorance, I don't think the paper goes into that. But what it says is these are the people who are not complying with the law, and the IRS simply doesn't have the staff or the resources to be able to audit them and enforce it.
Right. Okay. It's a sad number. If it's true, it's sad. The $1.2 trillion number. That's just. You're saying it might be inadvertent, maybe some of it. I don't know. What did you make of the entire GameStop situation, what happened last week, the hearings. Where do you think that goes from here? Is it over?
No, I think the question is, where do we go here? Here's where I think you could get common ground and consensus. I think one place of consensus should just be disclosure. I mean, when you have a app like Robinhood and people are buying or selling on the app, they ought to have clear disclosure that if trade goes above a certain threshold, they may have to shut the site down. They ought to have certain provisions for capital requirements if something gets too hot. So I think the question is, how do we have greater disclosure so that we don't have a situation like happened before?
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.